r/TalesFromTechSupport, episode 33. But it told me to put the confidential files in the public share. So this happened a good while back and still makes me facepalm to think about. Bit of background. This office had two main file shares, one for sensitive internal comms, and one for all user access. You can already see where this is going. $ME, the hero you'd have to have burned an orphanage down to deserve $IS, incompetent secretary. You've all met someone, whatever their position, like this, makes large regular fuck-ups, but is pathologically incapable of accepting the blame for it in damp #X200B. So I get a call that they're having trouble moving these very obviously confidential files for whatever reason. Some kind of permissions issue, I've forgotten exactly, but that's when I notice where she's trying to back these up. That's when I switch to email correspondence, because I'm getting some weapons grade sire on this one, and $ME. You are aware this location is publicly accessible to anyone who knows where it is, right? And $IS. Well, I should hope not. Your colleague told me to store them here in $ME. That would be against a number of policies and processes. Could you please forward me the email in which they advised to do so? $IS. Does so. CCING and my manager and her regional manager. Now I'm going to stop here and say that to me at least doing something like that at this stage of things is passive aggressive at best and a declaration of war at worst. Given her history, I took this as the latter. I review the email chain, and it is not in fact her being told to store them there. It is an email from when she was a new employee explaining the file storage arrangements and her access rights, with a section specifying quite clearly what not to do. She'd obviously just skimmed it, noticed the fact she has drive mappings, and did her own thing. I would have been surprised nobody raised this with us sooner, but she was by no means the only or even most dysfunctional staff member at that department. As she has decided in her infinite wisdom that upper management needs to be in the loop on this, I keep them in for the rest. And $ME. Sorry, I think this may be the wrong email chain. This is the guidance sent out to new employees and $IS. Yes, and it says where I should be storing these files. Your department said to do this. And $ME. Having run out of fucks to give, I reply with just a copy paste of the original email with the warning section about the public area, highlighted in bright red. The correspondence went oddly quiet after that. A month later she left to pursue new challenges. I wonder if it was this, her personality, or her charity efforts to house and care for as much malware as she could find. I'll never know. Monthly server reports. So this is from about 15 years ago, before the implementation of Lansweeper or other such network infrastructure inventory apps. Corporate turned out to be two idiots checking off a box, had the bright idea to send out a spreadsheet to all of its locations to fill out needed information on every server we had. Oh yes, I still think of these server reports every time I see the TPS reports in Office Space to this day. My personal area of responsibility had about 18 such machines on this list. The spreadsheet asked a lot of static information like amount of RAM and hard drive size. Then several things that changed almost daily, like free space on data share, number of databases running, and number of possible users. That is basically a guess. It was plain idiotic and time consuming. Several months later all its managers were meeting at corporate, and the man who thought up this brainchild Excel report gave a 10-minute speech on the value of this information, and then asked 4 questions. I raised my hand. Me, so what good is it, speaker? What do you mean? Me, well, this report is all well and good, but honestly, why do you need to know, let's say, how much free space is on my server? If it is full, are you going to automatically ship me a bigger server or maybe bigger drives to install? Speaker, well, no, of course not. Me, then I repeat. What good is it? Why do I need to spend my time filling out this information that will not create an action item to resolve any actual problem? This immediately spurred almost every manager there to speak out on their own problems with the report. 2 weeks later it was removed from our responsibilities. I hate busy work. There's been a faxident. Back in the spring of 2018, I had just finished creating an online submission system for the veterinary lab where I work. Previously, we would spend 2 to 3 hours a day on data entry, just deciphering and transcribing what our clients, generally veterinarians or their technicians, had written on the paper forms. For sample submissions that used our online form, however, we would just open the box, scan the barcode, and click the accept button to import the data into our database. This would save us at least an hour or two each day, so I was pretty proud of it. In my free time over the course of about a year, I designed the online form, integrated it with FedEx web services, set up the database servers on the backend to handle the data, etc., and tested it extensively. Now, it was finally ready for prime time. I'm sure you can imagine my excitement. The trouble is, it only works when our clients know to use it. I needed to get the word out. So I created a pretty neat little flyer extolling the virtues of our new online submission form, reduce human error, print a FedEx label, and I queried our database to find the fax numbers of our 100 or so most active clients. Our database front-end client is Microsoft Access based, so I wrote a VBA script to cycle through the client list and send each of them a copy of the flyer via fax. The code looked a little something like this: create outgoing fax job. Dim obj fax document as object, set obj fax document equals create object, fax comex point fax document, while not rst.dof set properties of outgoing fax and submit it. With obj fax document, recipients add rst point fields, clinic underscore fax, rst point fields, clinic underscore name, subject equals checkout on new submission form, body equals environ, temp, and amp, backslash on Linux submission flyer point if, document name equals rst point fields, clinic underscore name, submit end with rst point mov and extend, while because my phone line doubles as my fax line. And because it was Friday, I queued it up not long before I left for the weekend. I watched the first one to make sure they were sending properly and everything looked good. They were still being generated, but for 100 faxes, that was going to take a few minutes. I wasn't sure how long it would take for all 100 of them to go through, but I didn't expect it to take more than a couple of hours. Imagine my surprise when I walked in Monday morning to find that these faxes were still going out. More worryingly, we had several emails and voice messages begging us to stop sending them faxes. Oops. You've probably already seen my mistake, and now you're sitting there grinning about it. And that's all well and good for someone reading TFTS stories from the comfort of the employee restroom. But for anyone not familiar with VBA or the fax comex library, here's what happened. I created a record set containing the recipient fax numbers. I created a fax document. I created a loop that adds a recipient fax to the fax document, sends the fax, and moves on to the next recipient fax number. What I did not have was a line that *removed* the recipient fax number. So the first fax went to the first recipient. The second fax went to the second recipient, *and the first recipient. The third fax went to the third, second, and first recipients. And so on. By Monday morning, the first recipient had received the same fax *71TIMES***. Each subsequent recipient had received it one less time than the previous recipient. Once I had stopped the remaining outgoing faxes, responded to all of the emails and voicemails, and corrected my code to send exactly one copy to each of the remaining 29 or so recipients, I composed an apology fax and sent it only once this time. Honestly, I found the whole thing hilarious. Yeah, it was embarrassing, but inexplicably amusing. Fortunately, my boss had the reaction I was hoping for, and we laughed about it for a while. I still can't help but laugh about it every time I think about this faxident. Of course, the next faxident got the police involved. But that's a tale for another day. Sweet elderly lady setting up email. So this was years ago, when I was frontline tech support for a US ISP. Sweet elderly lady calls in to set up her email, either in IncrediMail or Outlook Express, I can't recall which, but they're both literally the same. I walk her through getting into the settings, just like I've done hundreds of times before. She's just not following along, as people often do. We get to the 20-minute mark, so I change my tactic and try to get her into the settings a different way. There's not many ways, mind you, but I try all the same. We get to the 30-minute mark, and I'm drained. Late for my lunch break too. So I change my tactic once again. Is there anyone else there that I might be able to talk to? She says my grandson is here, if you'll talk to him. At this point, I'll happily speak with anyone else, so I tell her, if he's okay speaking to me, I'm okay speaking to him. He says hello, and tells me his name. He must be 7 or 8 years old. Hooray. I think to myself, this is going to be another 30 minutes. I start where I did with the grandma, and he's to the ML settings as quick as anyone. I walk him through inputting all of the settings and whatnot. Within 3 minutes, I'm sending a test message to his grandma's email address and tell him to reply so we can confirm incoming and outgoing both work. He gets my message and replies with hi. I then notice in the from line that the email is from none other than SpongeBob SquarePants. I tell him I just need to let his grandma know it's working, so he puts her on the line. I'll let her know how great of a job he did, and the call is over. I never told her what he'd done, it was too funny, and I'd had it with that call by then. A music collection on my server? Must have been nice. Several years ago, but this century at least, the company I worked for at the time contacted software development out to a company in India called Valu Labs. We ran a virtual infrastructure, and they had virtual desktops to do their work via RDP. After a while, one of our dev servers had about 10 GB of space disappear, and it was pretty tight. The dev environment manager came to me to figure it out. It turned out, one of the developers had pulled down 10 GB of music, hidden it on a share, and was streaming it over the RDP session. Rather than just delete this collection of indie music, I decided to get creative. I wrote a batch file that collected all the file names, and instead of deleting, replaced the content of the file with the crazy frog. The total size when done, only used 250 megabytes. The dev env manager was worried, asking what happens if the guy complains. I explained that it would never happen. Who complains that their illegally copied music library stored on the server owned by the company that your company is contacted to has been corrupted? Who would they complain to, and how would they keep their job after admitting to illegally storing copyrighted music on a client's servers? My only regret is that I never saw the look on the guy's face when he realized how busted he was. Moving to a new server, copy the databases across, oops again. I was reminded of this today when one of my colleagues was trying to shrink a MS SQL template without having to restart the finance system. It was hitting 1.5 TB and almost filling the drive. Not sure if he fixed it. I had to go to a meeting about wireless. So, in the mid-2000s I worked for a UK 1992 group university, not one of the old established ones. I was the oddity as I was a department tech who handled all the computers, server, and web server for the psychology course. It wasn't run by the mainnet department who I had a decent working relationship with. Anyway, we were moving campuses, and as part of that we managed to get a new Sun Microsystems before they got borged. Server paid for under the move, costs as the old Ultra 5 wasn't rackable where it would need to be. I was working with the only IT staffer who was a Unix admin. He often bounced questions off me and asked my advice when he had an issue. We were in my office carrying out the actual transfer to the new server after it was set up and ready. All the files for the web server and the various weird systems I had created during my time. All that was left was the databases themselves, which, at the time, were on MySQL. I typed the commands to transfer the data, and the other Unix admin didn't see anything wrong, which ran rather quickly. So I thought, huh. I checked. I'd just mixed up the commands. No databases on the old server. No worries. I had a copy that had been made just in case. So we once again tried to copy the data. Guess what? We goofed again and wiped out our only backup. Normally, the server was backed up daily because it was currently balanced on a rack in the DMZ server room. There was no way to back it up. FYI, I have backups, and I'm good with them. They weigh the whole move, and server move process occurred, made it a mess, and backups were now out of my hands. So, we sit there for a few minutes wondering what the heck to do. No current database backup. My last copy was on my test server, and, although good, was 3 months out of date. Several thousand forum posts and a lot of other information was missing. We discuss a few options, data recovery etc, but I suddenly have a brainwave. Me, being me, had a transaction log running, and the last time it was cleared was several months ago. I copy the 3-month-old data to the new server, both of us triple checking the commands, but I also had a DVD copy of this data also. I then extract the transaction log into a SQL file. Cross my fingers and ran the log file through the database. The other guy wasn't a DB admin, so understood what I was doing, left me to it. He was good guy at realizing when not to help as well when to help. The import finally completed and I started up the web server itself. Then gingerly checked everything. Happily enough, after running a check on all the databases, everything was working, and almost everything was working fine. The only problem I had was a few users had messed up number of posts on the forum I ran for the students. A quick run of the sanity checker on the forum software and everything was working. Afterwards, I sent an email to all the staff saying the web server was up and that I needed a drink as we had a few issues. If they urgently needed me, I would be in the student union bar having something a little stronger than tea. I only had a single pint of ale. Yes, we probably should have made more backups. I usually have. The circumstances were not the best at the time, and I had enough trouble just getting some of the basics. One of these days I should post on how I finally managed to convince the dep to get her ups for the servers. Weekly status and activity reports. Back when the earth was cooling, and much earlier in my career, I had a manager who was a complete busybody control freak. Ralph insisted that we produce a weekly report on what we did. I'd do a summary one-pager which I'd print out over the network to his desktop printer. This was in the NT4/Win95 years. Needing a reason to moan, he always believed you managed by complaining about something, anything, because praise was apparently bad. He berated me for producing a summary only. He also hated that I'd just pushed to his printer. So he said he wanted details. The week before, I had gotten my new Palm Pilot Pro. It had the ability to store tasks in Outlook, so I started recording everything. Plugged in a keyboard, task recorded. Plugged in a network cable, task recorded. For 3 weeks, the status reports jumped to about 10 to 15 pages each in a nice table output. Conceding defeat, Ralph advised that a one-page summary was fine. So I wrote a macro template that would just generate randomly believable numbers and automatically pump it to his printer. The rest of my time there, paperwork didn't interfere with my actual work again. Box of wonders. This is not my story, but my husband's. Please bear with me, as I'm not tech savvy at all. I just thought some of you might find this interesting. This is also my first time posting to this subreddit. So apologies if I break a rule. So, my husband does all kinds of troubleshooting for it. Last week he was called out to a complex in Compton, California. Compton may have good areas to it, but this was not a crime-free area. The people at the complex told hubby that they weren't able to connect to the internet. After a while of trying to figure out where the problem was stemming from, he figured it came from the box down the street. I don't know what that means, but I hope you all do. He then went to check out the box and found the problem. Apparently, the box had dozens of bullet holes in it. One of the bullets severed the cable that delivered internet to the complex he was working on. My poor guy.